With National Signing Day now in the books, it's time to look at the class, look at what Boston College football needs, and find out what players stand the best chance of jumping into the two deep and impacting BC immediately in 2023. We're going to get into that and a little Christmas cheer on today's edition of Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. Merry Christmas. Today's episode of Locked On Boston College is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, folks, it's football talk. After a great Wednesday, a day in which BC basketball shocked the world with a win over Virginia Tech, we're going to jump back into National Signing Day because that is a big day in terms of college football talk, and we're not going to drop the ball here and miss some chances to talk about the future of BC football. So you got 17 recruits here. You look at the grand scheme of their rankings, and yeah, they're 55th in the country in total rankings. But, folks, when you're looking at this, it's important to realize that when you're looking at 247 Sports' rankings, it's based on the total amount of recruits. So bulk recruits kind of impact the amount that the score that you get. So if you have a larger class, you're going to do better than a smaller class. BC only had 17. This is the first time under Jeff Hafley that they had a smaller class. And so I think it's important to note that BC has the 8th ranked ACC recruiting class when you look at the average score of each player. So the talent's there. It's about the same as last year. Honestly, I know folks have been really upset about, where the recruiting class is. It's not that far off from last year. It's pretty close. Okay. But we watched a team in 2022 that was miserable to watch. They had a lot of issues up and down the roster. There was problems on both sides, actually all three sides of the ball. You don't want to forget special teams. So it begs the question, BC this year, I believe Hafley said, had 6 or 8 players of their recruiting class play major roles by the end of the year. Who's going to do that next year? Who has the best chance of getting on the field and being immediate contributors for Boston College? Because you're going to have to. Every team has freshmen that they throw out. So this year, when you're looking at the true freshmen that played, it was cornerbacks like Amari Jackson. You saw Jude Bowery, a offensive lineman, get a little play here and there. Running backs, Alex Broom, Cam Barfield, who I think probably kept his red shirt, if I remember correctly. Jeremiah Franklin, tight end, who had a tough year, but he played a lot. Obviously, Joseph Griffin, the wide receiver. I'm probably missing a few here and there too. Edwin Kalengi, a defensive end. You saw a lot of players from that BC freshman class get out there and play. So here's my question. Let's look at who is going to be the guys that could play next year. And my first one I want to get into is Jaedn Skeete. Jaedn Skeete is a wide receiver, big, lengthy. I mean, look at the length on him in that picture, right? If you're not on YouTube, you need to subscribe so you can see the pictures that I'm talking along. He's from Catholic Memorial, Massachusetts. Jeff Hafley, during his press conference on Wednesday, called him the best recruit in Massachusetts. I'm not gonna rail on the kid because Jaedn Skeete has every potential to be a really good recruit. But when you have Joel Aguero, who's going to Georgia, and Samson Ukalola, who's going to Miami, and Ronan Hannafin, who's going to Clemson, and Preston Zinner, who's going to Notre Dame, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of that. But that being said, he's a coach. What's he going to say, right? He's going to say that kind of stuff. Skeete, he could be a player. And yeah, the wide receiver room is going to be a big question mark going into the offseason because there's a lot of change going on there. First of all, Zay Flowers is gone. He's going to end up in the NFL. He's already declared, so he's gone. Jaedn Williams, he missed most of the end of the season with something. I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. It was not injury related. Let's just leave it at that. Will he be back? He's been liking and tweeting about BC, so he could be back. Jalen Gill, last I had talked to my source, he had not made a decision yet. The fact that I haven't heard that he's entered the transfer portal, to me, means he will be back. But who knows? Then you have Dino Tomlin, Joseph Griffin, and you have your group of wide receivers, and Lewis Bond as well. We don't know what's going on with him as well. BC could have some spots. If any of these guys go down, all of a sudden you're looking at your depth. Will Ishmael Samora play? He's a redshirt freshman. I mean, Jeff Hafley thinks the world of Jaedn Skeete, thinks of his length, talks about his athleticism. He was a big part of a good Christian Catholic Memorial team. I think he could play. I think he's someone who could play. And as we're talking about wide receivers, the other wide receiver that could also jump out is a guy that, when I think about what his game film, he has a lot in common with Zay Flowers, and that is Nate Johnson. This is a kid that surprised the heck out of me that no SEC team, or ACC team too, because he's in Florida. He's a Clearwater, Florida kid that wanted to go out and get this wide receiver. He was just named by the Underclassmen Report out of ESPN as the best max speed of any recruit in the class of 2023. Did you hear that? The best speed in the country. And he's at Boston College. You know, you hear about all these other kids and you have a guy with really good speed. Now, speed is just one item, right? He could be a terrible route runner. He might not have the greatest hands. We'll have to wait and see. But speed, man, when you have speed at college football, that is something that is a tangible quality that can make you stand out over anyone else out on the field, because you just need to put on your burners, run, and have that quarterback throw you the ball. When you have a quarterback like Moorhead who can bomb it, it seems like a match made in heaven. So Nate Johnson, to me, this kid, he's from Clearwater, Florida, just like Zay. Zay's from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They're Florida kids, both of them. I think he could see the field early. He's a kid I think I would watch for. And I don't know, between Skeete and Johnson, who sees the field first. It all depends on what the need of this team is. Do they need a guy that can do what Zay Flowers did? Maybe they go with Johnson. Do they need a bigger wide receiver who can do more things? They may go with Skeete. I put both of these guys on that list because I think both of them could. And to be frank, I love their haul at wide receiver, because you add in as well Reed Harris, a 6'4" wide receiver from Montana. I'm not putting him on my list because I think he's going to take time. Montana football, let's be frank, I don't know anything about Montana football, but I'm going to guess it's going to take a little while for him to adjust. And then you have Montrell Wade from Texas. So you have 4 wide receivers who could make impact. I like all of them. I mean, Wade is more of a physical, bigger wide receiver. Harris is huge, but might take some time. And then you have the other 2. So those are 2 of my guys. Now, in a moment, we'll get to our other 3, including some defensive players that you're going to want to know about. But before we do that, did you know that driving high is considered driving under the influence? That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high could get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends can tell. Your coworkers can tell. Even your parents can tell. I can tell. Everyone can tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement don't know what you're doing when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana can slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the driving bottom line is, if you're different, you drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, drive high, get a DUI. Paid for by the NHTSA. Locked on BC, AJ Black here. If you have not done so already, I want to give you an opportunity to give yourself a gift. You're listening to this podcast. That means you like Boston College. If you like Boston College, you crave, maybe you're an alumni and you like to, you miss talking about athletics. head over to Eagle Insider. It's part of 247 Sports, which is the industry leader in recruiting and analysis on Boston College. And I'm telling you right now, I'm giving you the most in-depth analysis that you can find on the internet on my site. Right now, we have a special deal for the entire year where you can get 50% off your subscription to Eagle Insider. I have interviews with recruits. I just had a whole post with superlatives for this upcoming recruiting season. I've got crystal ball predictions for players that could come to BC. I have Mitch Wolf's game analysis under these are all paywalled stuff. You can get all that, but get this. If you subscribe right now, you can also get Paramount Plus. That's part of the deal. Check it out on the website. I shouldn't talk more about that, but you need to check that out. But as I said, I live and breathe Boston College football, and I love recruiting. So this is my specialty. So check out 247 Sports, and let's continue talking recruiting because I'm really interested in talking about it. Now, let's look at the defensive side of the ball, because I think honestly, the bigger chance for BC to get guys out there early is on defense, and specifically in the defensive backfield, because BC has shown a tendency over the last 2 years to get true freshmen out at defensive back. And I'm not sure if it's a learning the scheme, getting guys in early, their ability to coach them up. Not sure what that is. But right now, BC is going to have a spot at least that they're going to need to fill. And that's CJ Burton, a former 4-star defensive back. He played over the last 2 seasons. He entered the transfer portal a couple days ago. If you want to hear more my thoughts about that, hit up YouTube, find my episode where I talk about it. You'll get all that right there. But with him gone, it begs the question, who's going to fill a spot? Now, there's guys that BC had this year that were hurt that could jump in, because you're going to have Josh DeBerry and Elijah Jones be your starting 2. But on the other end, who's going to be it? Is it going to be Amari Jackson? Is it going to be Jaedn Skeete? Both guys had played this year. Skeete got hurt. But behind them, Hafley loves to play multiple defensive backs. As he said in his press conference on Wednesday, he loves to get, 3 defensive backs on the field at all times. So if a guy goes down, he's going to need depth. So I look at Sean Battle, who had 5 touchdowns for Newman Goretti in Pennsylvania. Big time player. This is a kid that's getting ready to play, and he's enrolling early. Love his chances to play early for Boston College. I think he could be in there sooner rather than later. Amari Jackson did it last year. CJ Burton did it the year before. I'm guessing Sean Battle, and I put him up as he's my top guy in terms of any guy on this roster who could play early next year. Sean Battle is, if you were to ask me to rank him, would be number 1. I think he's going to be the guy that you see, and he's BC's top ranked recruit to go along with that. And so you see Santa. In addition, there's other defenders as well. Kahlil Ali is my number 2 guy. BC's safety position, they added Victor Nelson Jr. from LIU. They've got Cole Batson, but safety is such a physical position. I look at that depth and I wonder who's going to play on that group. Will Steve Lubisher play well enough to join the 2 deep? He's been there a long time. Is he going to be good enough to do it? And then behind him, who's going to be next? And so I look at a guy like either Kahlil Ali or Carter Davis from both of them are from the DMV area, District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia. I could see either of those 2 guys playing. Those are my other 2 big names. And then my final guy from this roster that I think could probably see the field early next year has to be on the defensive side as well, and that's Eric Stoggerty. Eric Stoggerty played for Brothers Rice in Michigan. He is an interior defensive lineman right now. The BC could do a bunch of different things with him. He's big, but he's not big enough to be a defensive tackle right now. He needs to add a little weight. But he's at that kind of tweener spot where they could also have him dock a little weight and have him a defensive end. I think they're going to stay interior with him. And you just lost Chibuzi Onwuka. He's one of the guys that is definitely gone for Boston College next year. You're going to have Chris Banks, but he's been playing around on the outside. And I've liked what he's done on the outside. So he could play some outside stuff. You're going to have him. You're going to have Cam Horsley, who's definitely going to start, and Quan Williams, who I think will probably be a starter, Owen Stodmeyer, and Nigel Tate, who didn't play this year because he was hurt. BC loves, I mean, if you watched one thing with Jeff Hafley this year that was positive, is that when he has depth, he cycles through it a lot. That, like, looking at the snap counts at defensive tackle last year, it was like every guy was like 30 snaps each. And they never left one guy out there all that long. He likes to get new guys in there. And when you have the talent to do it, that's not a bad thing to do. So given that, I think Dougherty could jump in there if that's the case. If they need a guy to jump in and get some snaps, I think he could be the guy. And you know what? He's got the talent, and he's Eric Dougherty, ERYX. I love the spelling of his name. It exemplifies the total diamond in the rough mentality that you see out of Boston College every single year when they go to the recruiting portal. He didn't have a ton of big offers, but had a ton of big plays for Brothers Rice. He was on the dream team from the Detroit Free Press. They put him on that list. He did a ton of things for that team. I love him. I think he's going to be a big time get for BC. Now, there's other players too. Guys, when you're asking about certain other positions, Jacoby Robinson, I don't see him playing. He's going to probably go the same role as Peter Delaportis in redshirt this year. Dontrell Jones, he was a borderline. He's a running back from Catholic Memorial, just like Jaedn Skeete. I think he could play, but it most likely would be on special teams, but we'll have to wait and see what he does there. And, there's other positions as well, but I think those are it. I think given what some of the things that Hafley said, one of the things to look at is I feel like he really wants to lean more on the upperclassmen. That's why he went for the transfer portal kids. Let the kids develop. Let them take that redshirt year if they can. But they'll be there if they need it. And we've seen with BC in the last 2 years, they need it. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Now, in a moment, it's Christmas time here at Locked On BC. And this is our last episode before Christmas break. And I want to talk about Santa Claus. Yeah, Santa Claus. We're going to get into our wish list for BC and what BC athletics should be asking Santa heading into next year. We'll be getting that in just a moment. Locked On BC, AJ Black. Now, I got a favor for you. If you want to get me a Christmas present, the biggest Christmas present you can give me is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at 660. We need 340 more of you to hit our ability to monetize the YouTube channel. It would be a huge help for me if we could get there, folks. So if you're listening to this, hit subscribe. All it does is it's going to give you all your BC content live on your YouTube feed. Even if you don't plan on listening to it, it does make a difference to me. So hit subscribe on Locked On BC on YouTube. Now, ho, 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 it's Merry Christmas. And here at Locked On BC, we're going in. We're going in on this Christmas stuff here because we're gonna have a little fun segment here. I'm going to talk about what each team at Boston College should be asking the good old Saint Nick for Christmas. I'm going to start with the football team. And I think you guys are all going to know what I'm going to ask for. I want BC, and I'm going to be very specific here, to get an offensive line. I have said on this podcast that if BC got an offensive line, they would be a decent team because it would trickle into every other aspect of their roster because when you have a group that is so bad, that was the Grinch of this roster, you need to fix it. And in addition to that, yeah, I'm going to say you need an new offensive line coach to go with that. That would be the angel on the tree for me. So for football, I'm going to say Santa, please bring us a new offensive line. Get us. I would love if Ozzie Trapillo and Drew Kendall stuck around. And obviously you're going to give us Christian Mahogany. He's newish for this year. And then a couple other guys, Kyle Hergel, who was, by the way, on Bruce Feldman's freak list, which is interesting. But that's my football wish list. Now, basketball. For basketball, my wish is for a shooter. BC against Virginia Tech had a great win, but also showed again that when they need a big shot, Micaiah Ashton Langford, credit to him, hit a few big shots there. They don't have a guy that can spot up shoot like you saw in Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had a couple kids that, rhythm shooters, things like that. I don't see that with Boston College. They've got defenders and they've got guys that can make buckets here and there, but they don't have a rhythm shooter or a volume shooter. I feel like they need that. And I was wondering if Donald Hand was going to be that guy, and now he's hurt. But I really, really wish that someone on this roster, whether it's Prince Aligbe, whether it's Micaiah Ashton Langford or Devin McLaughlin, someone on this roster turn into their shooter. They just don't have one now. And I think that's the big missing factor on that roster. So for basketball, I love that. For hockey, my Christmas wish is for Greg Brown to just continue to evolve and become the next big coach at Boston College. We've seen this program starting to take some good steps. They're recruiting like crazy. I love BC hockey when they're good. I don't talk about them a lot here because I'm not a hockey guy, folks. But Greg Brown is he's a kid that played for BC. He's a coach under Jerry York. Let him become the next big thing. I'd love to see that. For women's basketball, my Christmas wish list for women's basketball is to keep Joanna McNamee here forever. I have to say, and again, I don't talk about women's basketball because this is a football-focused podcast, and I will talk about other sports here and there when it's time, but there's been so much football talk, I haven't had a chance to. Their team, I believe, is 10-4 now. They had a win against a very good Georgia Tech team where they smoked Cam Schwartz, who used to play for BC last year and was their leading scorer. They're 10-4, and this is a year after basically BC's entire roster went on the transfer portal. They lost Taylor Soule, Clara Ford, Cam Schwartz. You name it. Marnell Garrod. They lost everybody on this women's basketball team, and they're still really, really good. And they're going to cause some havoc in the ACC again. And I have to go to the common denominator here. It's Joanna McNamee. This woman puts together a great program, and BC cannot let her go, because I think if women's basketball was to get to the tournament this year, it would take that next step and really get some interest on campus. Love to see that happen. All right. For Blake James, I would love for him to find a heart, to become the AD that we saw. Like I would love to see him become an amalgamation of Martin Jarmond and Pat Kraft. And I would love to see him to be the face that Martin Jarmond was, because Martin Jarmond was everywhere. Everyone loved him. He was on social media. He was interacting with fans. He was at tailgates. He was at games. He was taking pictures. He was shaking kissing babies and shaking hands, doing all that great stuff. But I would love to him to have the political prowess and ability to do things that Pat Kraft did, because Pat Kraft was not on social media, but he did things. I'd love to see him do that. That's a big wish right there. And for all Boston College fans, I think I would love to say, I would love to see Father Leahy retire. I was there when Father Leahy was there too. And the feeling that he was not a fan of the athletic programs back then wasn't there, but I sense it now. Like, folks, I get it. And I hear his hesitation towards NIL and all this stuff. The dude needs to retire. It's time for a new president at Boston College. So overall, of everything I said, of everything that I put on our wish list, my biggest hope for Boston College, my biggest, please Santa do this, is that Father Leahy retires soon. Because if, for instance, BC football fails, I want the coaching staff, the athletic department, to have a president that was willing to put in money to get the next coach that's going to be a Power 5 level solid coach if Hafley is not the guy. And if Hafley's the guy, I want them to be able to pay him so he stays here. I don't want anything in between. I don't want BC to cheap out and lose on Hafley if he's the right guy. And if Hafley isn't, I don't want them to go and just buy the next Frank Spaziani. That's it. So in order for that to happen, you need a new president. And I think it's time for BC to have a new president. Father Lee, he's been here for literally forever. And I think all fans would love to see some fresh blood to look at, to some fresh new eyes to look at Boston College athletics and help guide BC in a very ever-changing landscape here in 2023. And I think that's it. And so, I was going to say to get off, but Len asked me a great question. And he says, "Hey, AJ, what's on your Boston College wish list?" So I'm telling about everything that I think I said for my wish list for everything there. For me personally, I just want BC sports to win again. I mean, totally. Even if I took on, I see a lot of journalist robots out there that are just like, Boston College lost to NC State. They had some good times here and there. They threw the ball for 3 touchdowns, but they also let up 4 touchdowns. And that's not me. You guys know that's not me. I am a guy who covers BC, who went to BC, who cares about Boston College and wants to see them succeed. That's all I want. That's all I want to do is see BC win. It helps me with the site, obviously, financially. If BC's good, you guys want to read more about it. But personally, I'm telling you right now, I have a son who's 4 years old. This morning, I'm telling you, I was home with him. He was sick. And he's like, "Dada, can you put on the DVR?" And I said, "Sure." And I go, "What do you want to watch?" He goes, "Football." And what was on my DVR was BC and NC State. He goes, "Dada, can we watch this?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then he made me put on my BC shirt, which was in the laundry, and his shirt, and we watched it. And then he goes, "Dada, who wins this game?" This is a kid that I've told every time he asks me the morning after he goes to bed, "Who won last night in the Boston College game?" And I go, "Boston College lost," almost every time. And he goes, "What the heck?" That's what he's learning. He is 4, and he learns that Boston College loses all the time. So when BC Virginia Tech last night, and I got to show him this morning the NC State game, which he knew about, but I had to he's 4, he forgot, and I'm like, these are 2 big wins for BC. He got really excited about it. And I want that excitement for all BC fans for every game. I want BC to go out there and win some big games in basketball, hockey, women's basketball, baseball. I thrive for that. And I want Santa Claus to bring that. And I just said, I think it starts from the top up. I think BC needs a little change of vision at the top of that lineup. And I think they can get back to that. So thank you, Len, for that question, because and that's how we're going to wrap things up. Well, folks, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Hanukkah, have a happy Hanukkah too. If you don't celebrate either of those and you're celebrating Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa, and anything in between, just let you know, I love y'all. This is AJ Black. We'll be back again. We're going to have a best of show on Monday. We're going to have a fresh new episode on Tuesday. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone. I'll see y'all again soon. Hit that subscribe button again. I'm asking you one last time. Please do it. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you all. We'll see you again soon.